Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. And strap yourselves in because now, thanks to the coronavirus, it is the perfect time to declare a breach because everybody is looking the other way except for us. If you are watching or listening to this, you are now informed, and probably the vast majority of the planet is not on these. So thank you for tuning in. And before I begin, I'd like to thank David Walker, Neville Goodalls, Jason Dance, and Chris Fallon for sending me, linking me, tagging me, messaging me a lot of the breaches you're about to hear about. So guys, thank you very much. It always helps me out. And if you have a tip for me, please feel free to do the same thing. It's always appreciated. And with that, let's start with Cognizant. Now, Cognizant is an IT giant, and they suffered a cyber attack this past Friday night, allegedly by operators of the Maze ransomware gang, and this is according to Bleeping Computer. On Friday, Cognizant began emailing their clients stating that they had been compromised, including and I quote, preliminary list of indicators of compromise identified through our investigation. Now, the listed IOCs, or indicators of compromise, included IP addresses of servers, and file hashes for 3 different files. Now, these IP addresses are known to be used in previous attacks by the Maze ransomware group. So here we are, and hopefully Cognizant will be able to lock that down and get rid of that quickly. Moving on, we are going to be giving you an update here on the San Francisco airport. Now, if you recall last week on this Breaches of the Week video, I reported that 2 websites from SFO, the San Francisco International Airport, were hit. And this is very interesting because the attackers are believed to be operating on behalf of the Russian government. And those are the ones that hit the 2 websites. This is according to cybersecurity firm ESET, and they said this a couple of days ago. Now, in a series of tweets, ESET said that, and I quote, the targeted information was not the visitor's credentials to the compromised websites, but rather the visitor's own window credentials. The intent was to collect Windows credentials of visitors by exploiting an SMB feature in basically some coding language that I'm not really going to dive into here, just for the sake of my non-cybersecurity professional friends. But this is, again, according to ESET. Now, ESET says the attack was carried out by a threat actor known as Energetic Bear, also formerly known as Dragonfly. This group has been active since 2010 and is believed to have ties to the Russian government. So that's something that we definitely need to consider here. But heads up, if you've been to SFOconnect.com, you might have been compromised by Russian hackers. Moving on, we're heading on over to Portugal for Energias de Portugal. This is Portugal's energy giant. They're actually one of the largest energy giants in the world, and they suffered a ransomware attack this week with attackers threatening to leak more than 10 terabytes of sensitive information on the company unless EDP basically pays them the equivalent of $11 million US in Bitcoin. Apparently, the Ragnar Locker ransomware was used in the attack. So hopefully EDP, or Energias de Portugal, is going to make sure that they're cleaning that up and they're okay. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company called Wapalyzer. This is a tech company that collects technographic data. They disclosed a security incident this week after an attacker began emailing its customers and offering to sell them Wapalyzer's database for $2,000. I assume that is a very steep discount on what Wapalyzer does. Now, in this data breach notification email, Wapalyzer confirmed the incident and said that the hack took place on January 20th, when an intruder accessed one of its databases, which the company says it left exposed online due to a misconfiguration. Human error, here we go. But if you use Wapalyzer, heads up to you. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Chrome browser web extensions, specifically 49 of them. Now, attackers have been using Google Ads to target unsuspecting cryptocurrency investors into installing malicious browser extensions, which basically have the aim of stealing passwords, passphrases, private keys, as well as basically draining your funds, moving your Bitcoin or your cryptocurrency out of your wallet. Now, Harry Denley, a researcher at Mr. Crypto, discovered scores of malicious Chrome browser extensions, 49 of them, that have been targeting cryptocurrency wallets from outfits like Ledger, Exodus, Jaxx, KeepKey, MetaMask, MyEtherWallet, and Trezor. So if you're using any of those, heads up. And to quote Mr. Denley, essentially the extensions are phishing for secrets, mnemonic phrases, private keys, and key store files. Once the user has entered them, the extension sends an HTTP post request to the backend where the actors receive the secrets and empty the accounts. So basically, once stolen, these extensions would then forward sensitive data to the entered by the user to basically a server that's under control, by the hackers. So be very, very careful when you are installing web browser extensions. You don't necessarily know who made them. Not all of them are legitimate, and quite frankly, Google and the others can't filter all of these out effectively. So a lot of times when they're being removed, it's retroactive. The damage has already been done for hundreds, thousands, or even millions of users. So heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Linksys. Linksys, if you recall, is that little wireless access point / router maker. I believe they're still owned by Cisco, and you can go ahead and buy these at local retail stores and all of that. They reset all of their customers' smart Wi-Fi account passwords after cyber criminals accessed a bunch and redirected their users to basically malware that was COVID-19 themed. Now, this mass reset took place after all the user accounts were locked on the 2nd of April, following Bitdefender, who is a cybersecurity firm. They revealed that malicious persons were basically taking these Linksys devices and getting into them through credential surfing attacks. Now, attackers accessed basically the smart Wi-Fi accounts, and they were changing the DNS server settings. So, in other words, if they were able to make that compromise to DNS, let's say you were trying to go somewhere legitimate, and one of the examples here was Disney, you would actually get redirected to a website that looks like it's from the World Health Organization, telling users to download and install an application that offers instructions and information about COVID-19. So Linksys, which does not have a good track record, in terms of cybersecurity vulnerability defense, once again got hit. And so they all basically reset themselves, and here we are. So if you have a Linksys product using a smart Wi-Fi account, your password has been reset. If they have the ability to enable two-factor authentication or give it to you, I don't know if they do, please make sure that you're enabling that as well, and use good passwords on your home-based routers. That is beyond important. Moving on, let's talk about the state of New York. In January, attackers compromised portions of the New York State government's computer network by taking advantage of an unpatched vulnerability in Citrix's enterprise software, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, while the New York State Office of Information Technology Services discovered the incident on January 28th, officials did not disclose this breach until this past Monday, about a week ago, after the Albany Journal and other publications started inquiring about it. Now, the attack disabled some of the state agency information systems, and it took nearly a month for them to get those back online, and that is according to the Albany Times Union. State officials as well as the FBI are now investigating, and so this is a very serious issue because it appears that the attackers were based in another country. This is again according to the Journal, which cited two people familiar with the investigation. When this incident was first discovered, basically the state of New York hired CrowdStrike to investigate, and here we are. So if you work for the New York State government, heads up, you might have a bit of an issue, and hopefully that whole thing has been resolved. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company or a website called Quid. This is an online marketplace for trading stickers, cards, toys, and other collectibles. They appear to have suffered a data breach in 2019, and the details of around 4 million users are now being shared for free, on underground, basically dark web forums and all of that. Now, the data, which ZDNet obtained samples from 3 different sources, contains Quid usernames, email addresses, and hashed password accounts. So if you use Quid, that's with 2 Ds, heads up to you. Moving on, we're going to be talking once again about OnlyFans. This is a London-based adult entertainment website, and last month, basically, they reported that they were targeted by attackers after a massive data breach containing 4 terabytes of photos, videos, and other things of their adult entertainment stars was dumped onto several hacking forums, and I remember reporting on this as well. This is actually one of 2 major adult websites in the world that were hit that week, the other one being in Phoenix in the United States. Although the company has categorically denied being hit, the data dump impacted several hundred of OnlyFans content creators, especially females, who apparently are the majority of the creators of this content. Now, according to HackRead, they learned that basically hackers or criminals rather, were selling this content on demand in the dark web. And so you could literally go to the dark web and buy basically a massive trove of OnlyFans data, information, videos, etc. for basically $5 to $12 US. So heads up to you if you've had anything to do with the London-based OnlyFans. Moving on, we're heading over to Kansas to a nonprofit called St. Francis Ministries. And apparently, an unauthorized party gained entry into an employee's account there, accessing sensitive and personal information as well as financial and protected health data. Now, St. Francis first noticed this anomalous activity on December 19th, and they confirmed the illegal access on February 12th, and then determined on March 24th that the data belonging to multiple individuals was actually exposed. Now, affected information includes everything from social security numbers to birth dates, driver's licenses and state IDs, bank and financial information and account numbers, payment card numbers, treatment and diagnosis information, prescription information, provider names, medical record numbers, and patient IDs, as well as Medicare and Medicaid numbers, health insurance information, treatment cost information, and credentials, which includes usernames and passwords. So basically, anything that you have to do online with St. Francis St. Francis Ministries may have been exposed, and if you use them, again, based out of Kansas, heads up to you. You may want to contact them. Moving on, let's stick in the healthcare realm, and let's go to Hartford Healthcare. They announced this past Monday that their systems were recently the victim of a phishing attack and has compromised patient information. Now, the company said on February 13th, they were made aware of concerning activity tied to 2 employee accounts, email accounts that is. Now, investigation by a forensics team found that someone had gained access to the accounts between February 13th and 14th, just in time for Valentine's Day. At least one of these accounts included personal patient information, including names, dates of birth, medical records, and other health insurance information. In 23 cases, the information included social security numbers. Hartford Healthcare said is notifying 2,651 affected patients by mail. The company will offer 2 years of free credit monitoring for the 23 patients whose social security numbers were affected by the breach. And at this point, if you don't have any kind of credit monitoring, I highly recommend you get it in perpetuity. Moving on, let's stick with healthcare again, because now we're talking about Presbyterian Healthcare Services. In May 2019, they suffered a ransomware attack that affected at least 183,000 patients. Now, the hospital sent emails apologizing for that breach to the original 183,000 patients, but we are updating this because the Santa Fe New Mexican, that's the journal here, reports that nearly 300,000 letters were later mailed to patients who may have been affected. In this statement, the hospital explains that no patient data has been improperly used or downloaded as far as they can tell. That is a default statement, basically by every organization going through a data breach, but at least one email address had access to provider names and social security numbers, and so they're basically hitting up everybody. So heads up, if you use Presbyterian Healthcare Services, you may be affected. And finally, let's give you guys an update on Zoom, because as you know, I've been reporting on Zoom for the last couple of weeks due to all of their issues, and Zoom has been working to fix many of the security vulnerabilities that basically were disclosed, including the issue with the chat, where it could possibly steal usernames and passwords, the whole Zoom bombing thing by enforcing things like passwords on meetings and all of that, but they're not out of the woods quite yet, and some of this actually isn't their fault, although they did lay the foundation for this. Now, according to researchers of ZeroFox, I guess that's a cybersecurity outfit, I do not know them, of ZeroFox's Alpha team, they know of roughly 5,343 Zoom-related domains that were newly registered by various parties in March of 2020. Then, from April 1st to April 4th, an additional 10,000 Zoom domains were registered in just a 4-day span. Obviously, as the coronavirus is ramping ramping up and everybody is scrambling to start working from home, a lot of these are obviously, basically being put up there by a lot of organizations trying to organize themselves around a new work from home remote structure. Now, ZeroFox sampled 1,700 of these new domains and found that 4% of them contain suspicious characteristics or malware. Now, despite this low percentage, the researchers believe a larger share may actually turn malicious in the future. None of the studied domains was owned by Zoom themselves. So anybody can spin up let's say a Zoom domain in that vein, and here we go. Now, the Alpha team found entire websites that specifically were dedicated towards sharing and selling Zoom IDs. One such website advertises what is essentially a Zoom spamming service called ClassCode. Now, this website encourages students to share their school classroom Zoom codes or use already shared codes to randomly join e-learning sessions. And to quote the website, it's all about just having fun. Here we are. Kids like to play pranks. I know high school, for me at least, was no exception, especially for people around me. And so if attackers are using this under the guise of like, hey, students, just put it here and we'll have some fun with this, I don't necessarily think they're thinking through those consequences. Lord knows I didn't think through consequences when I was a teenager. We all didn't. So that said, noting that Zoom session hijackings remain a threat, ZeroFox reported that their Alpha team also found roughly 16,200 websites at risk of Zoom bombing attacks because they contain a public invite link to Zoom meetings. Educational institutions, either K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade, or higher learning, were significant offenders. Now, according to this, and I quote, attackers can use these URLs to directly connect to meetings, and if insecure, they can interact with the chat, display video, or share their screen. Now, ZeroFox said that some of the dark web forums have actually banned the discussion of Zoom bombing in order to avoid unwanted attention, in the sense that, we're all looking at the dark web right now to see if we can do research on this, myself included. And so they are trying to avoid that. And so for that reason, cyber criminals are actually starting to shift that discussion to the chat app Discord to keep it more private. And so they are staying outside of the scrutiny of law enforcement and also researchers as well. And so also Bleeping Computer reported, citing details gleaned from a cyber intelligence firm, Cybele, that more than 500,000 Zoom accounts are currently being sold on the dark web and cyber criminal forums, basically, and they're going for cheap. Some of them are less than a penny aggregate. Some of them are even being given away for free. I think it's because Zoom has been very proactive in trying to get people to force meeting changes, force passwords, all of that. And so the rightful owners of those accounts allegedly include financial companies such as Chase and Citibank, as well as educational institutions, including the University of Vermont, the University of Colorado, Dartmouth, Lafayette, and the University of Florida. And so there you go. Outside of Zoom, Zoom has created this condition where attackers can basically spin up domains, create fake sites and all of this. And basically, if these organizations have put that information out there, they're now starting to get into forums. So Chase and Citibank are huge financial institutions, at least here in the United States. That's a huge problem for them that they now have to address and scramble. And there are other issues that have been going on with Zoom as well. I think Zoom has been, fixing a lot of the vulnerabilities in their software itself. They are looking at the whole connection or encryption keys being or originating from China, saying that if you're a paying Zoom member as of April 18th, which would be yesterday, I have not played with this feature yet, that you would have the ability to, let's say, opt out of regions, so your encryption would be established only in the region that you decide. So for me, it would probably be North America, for example. But they have a lot of problems given their ties to the Chinese government right now. From everything that I've read, they have 700 employees in China in 3 subsidiaries that were not really publicly disclosed. And by virtue of that, there's a lot of governments around the world like Canada, Germany, Taiwan, even the US Senate, that are now banning the use of Zoom due to security and operational issues. We as a cybersecurity outfit cannot recommend Zoom for any kind of sensitive meeting that is going to involve any kind of sensitive information. And that's a very serious thing that Zoom needs to address. And they have been actively working on creating that, one, by that opt-in, opt-out issue, but also by creating some kind of council, apparently, of cybersecurity experts. I think part of what they're going to need to do or have is a back-end audit of what they are putting out to basically make sure that they are staying honest. I think that's a very serious issue, and we'll see where this goes. But Zoom is actively addressing this, and we'll see where this ends up. But that is your news for the day, and there were a ton of breaches out there. And please bear with me here. I'm still a little bit under the weather if you couldn't hear. So thank you for sticking around, and I hope you guys are having a good weekend. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.